Lena had always been quiet, almost invisible in the bustling world around her. She moved through life with a gentle smile, careful steps, and an uncanny way of noticing the small things others often overlooked. She had grown up in a modest town where opportunities were scarce, and from a young age, she had learned to work hard just to make ends meet. Life had not been easy for her. Her parents had passed away when she was still a child, leaving her to navigate the world alone. But in those early struggles, she had learned resilience and humility, two qualities that would define her entire life. For the last 5 years, she had worked as a maid for one of the wealthiest families in the city. The family's mansion was enormous, with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and gardens that seemed endless. To many, it was a palace. But Lena never felt overwhelmed by the grandeur. For her, it was just a workplace, a place where she could earn enough to live with some dignity. She never bragged about her job or the people she served. She never sought attention. She preferred the quiet corners of life, the small joys that others overlooked, the smell of fresh bread in the morning, the laughter of children, or the soft rustling of trees outside the grand windows. The billionaire family she worked for, twin sons, both 9 years old, full of energy and curiosity. Their names were Alex and Leo. Unlike their peers, the twins had grown up with wealth and privilege, but they were not spoiled in the usual sense. Their parents, though often busy with work and public events, had tried to raise them with manners and respect for others. But being children, they were mischievous, curious, and at times impatient. They loved Lina because she had a way of listening to them that no one else seemed to. She never scolded them unnecessarily, never raised her voice, and always had a gentle word or a quiet laugh when they were playful. On a Saturday morning, Lena was given a task she had done many times before, to take Alex and Leo to the mall while their parents attended a long, important meeting. The twins were excited. Malls were magical to them, not just for the shops, but for the bright lights, the music, and the little events that sometimes happened in the open spaces. Lena packed a small bag for the boys, just water bottles, some snacks, and their favorite little toys. She reminded them to stay close and hold her hand when crossing busy areas. The drive to the mall was lively. Alex chattered nonstop about wanting to buy new comic books, while Leo insisted they needed to check the toy section first. Lena smiled quietly, listening. She had learned long ago that arguing with children rarely worked. Listening worked far better. She didn't mind the noise. In fact, there was something comforting about it. The twins' energy reminded her of her own childhood, a time before life became difficult, a time of freedom and simple pleasures. Once inside the mall, the twins immediately ran ahead, weaving between crowds with the kind of fearless energy only children possess. Lena followed at a careful distance, making sure no one accidentally bumped into them and that they didn't disappear into the crowd. She had grown accustomed to managing the chaos of children, and the mall, with its loud music and bright lights, was nothing new to her. As they walked through the main hall, the sound of a piano reached them. It was not the usual background music that played over the mall speakers, but a real, live piano set up near a small stage in the center. The soft, yet powerful melody drew their attention. Children and adults alike had begun to gather, some curious, some recording with their phones. Alex tugged at Lena's sleeve. "Can we go see?" he asked eagerly. Lena hesitated. She had seen these small public performances before, and usually the people who played were either trained or not very good. She smiled at the boys. "Okay," she said softly, "but stay close to me." The twins held her hands tightly as they approached the small crowd. A few teenagers were already near the piano, laughing and trying to play a few notes. Most were failing miserably, and a few of the onlookers were giggling at their mistakes. The boys watched with fascination, leaning forward, eyes wide. Lena noticed the subtle shifts in the crowd, the raised eyebrows, the stifled laughter, the curious whispers. "Do you think anyone here can actually play?" Leo whispered to Lena. "I don't know," she replied, smiling faintly. Her voice was calm, even though her heart had started to beat a little faster. The twins turned to her, their eyes shining with curiosity. "Can you play?" Alex asked, a mischievous smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Lena blinked, surprised. "Me?" she said softly. "I'm just a maid. I don't play in public." Leo looked disappointed. "You play at home sometimes, though. We've heard you." Her hands trembled slightly. She had played the piano many times in her life, but always in private, away from the eyes of others. It was a part of her she had long kept hidden, a part that reminded her of dreams she had to leave behind. She had once trained at a prestigious music academy. Her talent had been recognized, praised even, but life had other plans. After losing her parents, she had been forced to abandon her dreams and work to survive. Music had become a private solace, a way to remember a life she almost had, but could not. The teenagers nearby overheard the conversation. One of them laughed loudly. "A maid? Play the piano? That's rich. Let's see this." The others joined in, smirking. Some started whispering, calling her names behind their hands, confident that she could not possibly impress anyone. The crowd had begun to notice the tension. Some people were curious, others amused. Lena felt her cheeks warm. She was not used to attention, especially not mocking attention. She glanced at the twins, who were still watching her expectantly, their small hands gripping hers. She could see their excitement and a tiny hope that maybe she would play. She had seen that hope in many eyes before, and it always moved her. She took a deep breath. "All right," she said softly, more to herself than anyone else. "Just a little." She walked toward the piano, her steps measured and careful. The teenagers snickered, expecting a clumsy performance. The twins' faces lit up with anticipation. The crowd fell silent, sensing that something unusual was about to happen. Lena's fingers hovered above the keys. She could feel the smooth surface beneath her fingertips. It had been years since she had played in front of anyone, and her heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting the familiar feel of the keys calm her. Then, slowly, she pressed the first note. The sound was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but it quickly grew into a melody that was rich, deep, and full of life. The people around her paused, their phones lowering instinctively. The teenagers who had mocked her froze, their laughter dying on their lips. The melody filled the open space of the mall, weaving through the air like a living thing. Lena's hands moved effortlessly, guided by years of practice and the emotions she had carried with her all her life. Alex and Leo watched in awe, their mouths slightly open. They had never heard anything like this before. The music was powerful yet tender, complicated yet natural. Lena felt a strange sense of liberation as she played, as if each note was breaking free from the years of silence she had imposed upon herself. The crowd around them grew, people stopping in their tracks, captivated by the unexpected beauty. For Lena, it was more than just playing a piano. It was a moment where her past and present collided, where her hidden dreams emerged into the world, even if just for a few minutes. She could feel the energy of the crowd, the wonder in the twins' eyes, and the quiet astonishment of those who had doubted her God by the time she played the final chord. The crowd erupted in applause. Some people whistled, others clapped enthusiastically, and the teenagers who had mocked her earlier looked embarrassed and ashamed. Alex and Leo ran to her side, their small hands clapping furiously. "That was amazing." Alex shouted, "I didn't know you could play like that." Lena smiled, her face flushed but happy. She had not played for recognition or fame. She had played for herself, for the music that lived inside her, and for the small joy of seeing the twins' amazement. It was enough. As the crowd began to disperse, some people even asking where they could see her perform again, Lena took the twins by the hand. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's get out of here before the parents start wondering where we are." On the drive back home, the twins were unusually quiet, still processing what they had witnessed. "Why didn't you tell us you could play like that?" Leo finally asked. "I didn't think it mattered," Lena replied gently. "Music is something I do for myself, not for others." Alex looked thoughtful. "Well, it matters to us," he said softly. "We never knew you were this." "Amazing." Lena's smile widened. She had spent years living quietly, unnoticed, carrying her talent only in private moments. But now, something had shifted. A small seed of possibility had been planted, a reminder that perhaps her dreams were not entirely lost. And though she did not know it yet, this simple trip to the mall would change not only the twins' view of her, but also the path of her own life. For the first time in a long time, Lena felt the stirrings of hope. The world had noticed her, even if just for a moment, and the music inside her had found its way into the hearts of others. The day had started with the usual chatter and excitement as Lena drove the twins to the mall. But after that brief, unexpected piano performance, everything felt different. Even the air in the car seemed lighter, charged with the energy of the small adventure they had just shared. Alex and Leo were unusually quiet, each lost in thought, replaying the music they had just heard in their minds. Lena glanced at them in the rearview mirror, smiling gently. She could see the awe in their faces, and it warmed her heart in a way she had not expected. "Can we go back to the piano again?" Alex finally asked, his voice full of hope. Lena chuckled softly. "Maybe later. There are still other places in the mall we need to see today." The twins groaned in unison, but they trusted Lena and let her steer them toward the main hall. They walked slowly, taking in the sights around them. The mall was more than just a collection of stores. It was a world of its own. Bright signs hung from the ceilings, colorful displays tempted with toys and candies, and the aroma of freshly baked bread and sweet treats floated through the air. Lena kept her hands on the boys' shoulders, guiding them through the crowd, her eyes occasionally scanning for anything that might trouble them. The twins' excitement was contagious, and Lena found herself smiling more than usual. Children had a way of making life feel lighter, she realized, even when life had been heavy for so long. Alex stopped suddenly in front of a large toy store window, pressing his face close to the glass. His eyes sparkled as he pointed at a display of miniature cars and action figures. Leo, not wanting to be outdone, ran ahead to a small section of remote-controlled planes and helicopters. Lena followed slowly, letting them explore, but always keeping an invisible boundary to ensure they stayed safe. As they wandered through the mall, the memory of Lena's piano performance lingered. It was strange for her to feel eyes on her in a different way. People no longer saw her just as a maid. Some shoppers had whispered excitedly after the performance, pointing her out to each other. A few had even asked where she had learned to play. Lena had not answered. She was used to keeping her life private, and she intended to keep it that way for now. The twins, however, had other ideas. "Can you teach us some songs?" Leo asked suddenly, grabbing Lena's hand. Lena hesitated, unsure how to respond. She wanted to encourage their curiosity, but she also knew their attention spans were short, and she had no intention of performing publicly again today. "Maybe later, just for fun," she said softly. The boys nodded, but their minds were clearly elsewhere. Alex kept glancing at the piano, still captivated by what he had just heard. "It was like magic," he said quietly. "I've never heard anything so beautiful." Lena's heart ached slightly at his words. She had spent years playing in silence, keeping her talent hidden, and now that it had been seen, even for a moment, she felt both exposed and strangely free. "Music can be magical," she said quietly, "but it's not about performing for others. It's about what it does for you." The twins considered this for a moment, their expression serious in a way Lena rarely saw. Then, as if on cue, they both broke into wide smiles and ran ahead, eager to explore the next attraction. Lena followed, letting them lead the way. As they passed through the food court, the smell of popcorn and fresh pastries caught their attention. The twins begged for a small treat, and Lena allowed them each a chocolate croissant and a small drink. They found a quiet corner to sit and eat, away from the bustling crowds. Alex and Leo talked animatedly about the piano, replaying the melody in their minds, while Lena listened quietly, sipping her own water. She enjoyed hearing their excitement, feeling the simple joy of the moment. After their snack, they continued exploring the mall. Lena kept a careful eye on the twins, making sure they didn't get lost in the throngs of people. As they passed a small stage set up for children's activities, the twins spotted another piano. This one was slightly smaller, placed for anyone who wanted to try. "Look!" Alex shouted, pointing. "Another piano. Can we go?" Lena felt a pang of hesitation. She knew what was about to happen if they approached it. "We can look," she said softly, "but no promises about playing." The twins didn't need more encouragement. They ran ahead, and Lena followed at a measured pace. When they reached the stage, a few children were already sitting around, waiting their turn to play. A small crowd had gathered, curious to see the performances. Lena felt the familiar tension rising in her chest. Public attention had never been comfortable for her, and the memory of the earlier performance, with its unexpected applause, made her nervous. Alex and Leo leaned toward her, whispering, "Please, just a little. We want to see you again." The boys' eyes were full of hope, and Lena felt a tug in her chest. She wanted to say no, wanted to protect herself from the attention, but something in their faces made it impossible to refuse. She had seen that same hope in many others, a belief in her talent that she had nearly forgotten. She sighed softly. "All right," she said. "Just a short piece." She approached the piano, careful not to draw too much attention to herself. A few of the children nearby looked at her curiously, while some parents watched politely, waiting to see what would happen. Lena's hands hovered above the keys, and she closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the familiar comfort of the instrument beneath her fingers. This time, however, she played something light and playful, a small melody that danced across the keys. The children watched in awe, their eyes wide as the notes floated through the air. The twins clapped along quietly, their faces full of delight. Lena's heart lifted as she saw the pure joy her music could bring, even in a small, informal way. As she played, a few people in the crowd began recording on their phones. Lena noticed, but she didn't stop. The music was for the moment, for the children, for the small joy that had brought them together. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a sense of connection she hadn't felt in years. When the final note echoed into silence, the children erupted into applause. The twins jumped up, cheering loudly, their excitement drawing more attention. Lena smiled, feeling a rare sense of pride. For once, she allowed herself to enjoy the recognition, knowing it was fleeting but meaningful. A small voice from the crowd spoke up. "You're amazing. How long have you been playing?" Lena hesitated, then said softly, "A long time. Music has always been part of my life." She didn't offer more than that, keeping the details of her past to herself. The children around her were still clapping, some asking if she could teach them a few notes. Lena smiled gently. "Maybe another day," she said. "Right now, it's your turn to try." The twins ran to the piano, eager to experiment with the keys themselves. Lena guided them patiently, showing them a few simple notes, letting them create small melodies of their own. Their laughter filled the air, blending with the soft sounds of the piano. For Lena, it was a reminder of why she had loved music in the first place, not for fame or recognition, but for the joy it could bring to others. As the afternoon continued, they explored more of the mall. Lena watched the twins' excitement as they tried on hats, looked at books, and examined small toys. She found herself laughing quietly at their antics, feeling a lightness she hadn't known in years. It was a rare day of freedom and happiness, a day where she could simply enjoy being present with the children she cared for so deeply. At one point, Leo spotted a small stage set up for a mini talent show. "Can we watch?" he asked. Lena nodded, guiding them to a spot near the edge of the crowd. Performers of all ages took turns showcasing their skills, singing, dancing, even juggling. The twins watched with wide eyes, amazed by the variety of talent on display. Lena observed quietly, noticing how each performer brought their own story to the stage. It reminded her of her own journey, the dreams she had once carried, and the music she had kept hidden for so long. By mid-afternoon, the mall was becoming busier. Families with children, couples, and groups of friends filled the corridors. Lena kept a steady hand on the twins, guiding them through the crowds while keeping a watchful eye on their safety. She had learned the art of balancing freedom with protection, allowing the children to explore while ensuring nothing went wrong. As they passed by a small cafe, the twins begged for a quick snack. Lena agreed, letting them choose ice cream. They sat at a small table, chatting excitedly about the piano and the performers they had seen. Lena listened quietly, enjoying the simplicity of the moment. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace, a sense that her life could hold small moments of joy even amid the challenges. After finishing their ice cream, they wandered toward the exit, still talking about music and the piano. The twins were full of questions, curious about every detail of Lena's brief performance earlier. Lena answered gently, careful not to reveal too much of her past, but still offering enough to keep their imaginations alive. As they left the mall, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over the city streets. The twins were tired but happy, their small hands gripping Lena's tightly. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had given them a day full of wonder and excitement. In the quiet of the car ride home, Lena reflected on the day. The mall trip had started as a simple errand, a routine task she had done countless times before. But it had turned into something extraordinary, a day where music, curiosity. The next morning began like any other, with Lena quietly waking before the sun had fully risen. She moved through the mansion with her usual careful steps, tidying rooms, preparing breakfast, and ensuring that everything was in order before the twins awoke. But her mind was not on chores. It lingered on the previous day, on the memory of the piano, and on the small, surprised faces of Alex and Leo as they had heard her play. The applause, the wonder in their eyes, and the subtle attention from the crowd, all of it had left a lingering warmth inside her. She couldn't help but think about it as she moved silently through the grand house. The twins were up soon after, their energy spilling into the morning air like sunlight. They ran into the kitchen, shouting greetings and laughing at nothing in particular. Lena smiled gently at them, handing each of them a plate of toast and some fruit. As they ate, they spoke excitedly about yesterday, repeating bits of the melody they had heard, humming fragments of her performance. "I wish you could play more for us," Leo said, his eyes wide with genuine admiration. "I'll play again someday," Lena said softly, pouring herself a cup of tea. "But music is something special. It's not always for others to see. Sometimes it's just for you." The twins didn't argue, though Alex pressed his lips together as if he wanted to say more. They seemed to understand her point, at least for now. After breakfast, Lena helped them get dressed for the day. Their parents had another long meeting planned, and once again, she would take them out to the mall. The twins were eager to go, their excitement undiminished by the morning routine. As they arrived at the mall, the same energy as yesterday filled the air. Families, teenagers, and small children moved through the corridors, laughing and talking. Lena kept the twins close, carefully guiding them through the crowds. Alex and Leo had already spotted the piano stage in the center of the mall. Their eyes lit up, and they rushed ahead. Lena followed, a small smile on her face, but also a quiet tension in her chest. Yesterday's performance had been a small, unplanned moment. Today, she was not sure what would happen. Would the crowd remember her? Would there be people waiting to see her again? She had no desire for attention, yet she felt a quiet pull, a sense that yesterday had opened a door she could no longer ignore. The twins approached the piano, their hands brushing against the polished wood. A few children were already gathered around, watching curiously. This time, however, more people seemed to notice Lena as she drew near. Some had recognized her from the previous day. A few teenagers who had been laughing at her now looked embarrassed, avoiding her gaze. But others were whispering excitedly, pulling out phones to record. Lena's cheeks warmed, but she forced herself to take a steadying breath. "Will you play?" Alex asked, looking up at her with hope. "I'll try," Lena said softly, placing her hands on the keys. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the familiar texture beneath her fingertips. This time, she chose a more complex piece, something that combined both elegance and warmth, a melody she had practiced countless times in her youth, but had never shared publicly. The first notes floated into the air, delicate and precise. Immediately, the crowd grew still, mesmerized. The mall, which had been full of chatter and movement, seemed to pause. Shoppers turned in surprise, some stopping mid-step, others lowering their phones, captivated by the unexpected music. Lena could feel their attention, and yet she focused only on the keys, on the notes, on the story the music was telling. Alex and Leo stood close, their eyes wide. They had never heard anything like this before. The melody was rich, complex, and full of emotion. It was as if the music itself had a soul, speaking in a language that needed no translation. For Lena, playing in front of a crowd was no longer frightening. It was exhilarating. Every note was a release, a way of sharing a piece of herself she had long kept hidden. The children nearby watched with awe, some pointing and whispering to their parents. The teenagers who had mocked her before were now silent, their expressions a mix of surprise and admiration. A few people recorded on their phones, unable to resist capturing the unexpected brilliance. The twins clapped quietly along, their faces full of pride and wonder. As Lena continued, a small crowd began to form. People from all over the mall gathered, drawn by the melody. Parents lifted children to see better, and strangers whispered to each other about the woman at the piano. Some even tried to guess who she was, amazed that someone dressed so modestly could play with such skill. When she reached the middle of the piece, the melody shifted from delicate to powerful, filling the space with emotion. The notes soared and dipped, carrying a story of struggle, hope, and resilience. Lena felt herself transported, no longer in a crowded mall, but in a world of her own making. She remembered her past, her parents, the years of practice, and the sacrifices she had made. Every note carried a piece of her journey, and somehow the crowd felt it too. By the time the final chord rang out, the silence that followed was almost overwhelming. Then, slowly, applause began, building into a loud, sustained ovation. The twins ran to her side, their small hands clapping furiously. "That was amazing," Alex shouted, his voice full of joy. "How can you play like that?" Lena smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. She had not expected this. Yesterday had been a small moment, but today it felt different. The music had touched people in ways she had long forgotten it could. She knelt down to the twins, her hands on their shoulders. "Music is a gift," she said softly. "It's not about showing off. It's about sharing a feeling." The applause continued, some people whistling, others clapping even louder. A few approached, asking questions about her lessons and background. Lena answered politely, keeping the details of her past vague. She did not want attention, yet she could feel the crowd's genuine admiration, and it warmed her heart. After the performance, the twins insisted on showing her around the rest of the mall. Lena followed, allowing them to lead the way, but she noticed that the crowd's attention lingered. Some people whispered to each other, trying to catch another glimpse of the woman who had played so beautifully. Lena felt a quiet unease mixed with pride. She had never sought recognition, yet the admiration was undeniable. As they explored, the twins asked her more questions about music. "Did you always want to be a pianist?" Leo asked, his eyes bright with curiosity. Lena hesitated, then nodded. "I did," she said softly. "But life doesn't always go the way we plan. Sometimes we have to make choices we don't want to take care of the people we love or to survive. But that doesn't mean we forget our dreams. It just means we wait for the right moment." The twins listened intently, absorbing her words. Alex, always the more thoughtful of the two, nodded slowly. "So, you're saying you never stopped dreaming, even when you couldn't play for people?" "Exactly," Lena replied. "Sometimes our dreams are private, and that's okay." The afternoon passed quickly. The twins tried out a few instruments at a small music shop, played with toys, and even joined a short storytelling session at the mall's reading corner. Throughout it all, Lena remained close, guiding, supporting, and occasionally sharing a small piece of her knowledge. The twins' admiration never wavered. As the sun began to set, the mall grew busier. Shoppers hurried home, parents gathered children, and the soft glow of lights illuminated the stores. Lena decided it was time to leave, but she noticed something unexpected. Several people were still lingering near the piano stage, talking quietly, pointing, and even waiting for her. Some had recognized her from earlier performances and were curious if she would play again. Lena felt a surge of anxiety. She had not come to the mall for attention, and the idea of performing again, in front of a larger crowd, made her nervous. The twins, however, were insistent. "Please, just one more song," Alex begged. "Just for us." Lena looked at their eager faces and sighed. She knew she couldn't refuse them. She walked back to the piano, her hands trembling slightly, and took a deep breath. The crowd, sensing something was about to happen, quieted immediately. She began to play a gentle, flowing piece, different from the one earlier. It was lighter, more playful, yet carried the same depth of feeling. The crowd listened intently, captivated once again by the unexpected brilliance. Lena's fingers moved effortlessly, telling a story without words, and the twins' faces glowed with delight. By the time the last note faded, the applause was deafening. People cheered, some whistled, and a few even clapped with tears in their eyes. Lena knelt down to the twins, feeling a mix of pride, relief, and awe. She had shared her gift, even if only for a few moments, and it had touched more lives than she could have imagined. As they left the mall, the twins held her hands tightly, talking excitedly about everything they had seen and heard. Lena felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. She had not sought recognition, yet she had made a difference in small, meaningful ways. The ride home was filled with chatter and laughter. The twins replayed the music in their minds, talking about how incredible it had been. Lena listened quietly, smiling, feeling the warmth of their admiration and the joy of a day spent in wonder. She knew that life would soon return to routine, that the mansion, chores, and quiet moments awaited. But for now, she allowed herself to bask in the small magic of the day, a day where music, courage, and connection had intertwined. The day had begun quietly, with the sun spilling soft golden light across the mansion's tall windows. Lena moved through the house with her usual calm, preparing breakfast for Alex and Leo while thinking about the events of the previous day. The piano, the applause, the awe in the twins' eyes, it had all left a mark on her, one she could not shake. She knew that she could no longer treat her music as something entirely private. Yet, she also felt nervous about what might happen if the world truly discovered her talent. The twins came bounding down the stairs, full of energy and excitement, their chatter filling the room. "Can we go to the mall again?" Alex asked, practically bouncing with anticipation. "There's so much more to explore." Lena smiled gently. "Of course, but remember to stay close," she said. "The mall can be busy, and I want to make sure nothing happens to you." Leo grabbed her hand tightly. "And maybe you can play the piano again?" His eyes sparkled with hope. Lena hesitated, feeling the familiar flutter of nerves, but the twins' excitement was contagious. She had seen how music could light up their faces, how it could inspire curiosity and joy. She nodded softly. "Just a little," she said, "but only for you." The drive to the mall was filled with chatter about toys, books, and the little things the twins wanted to see. Lena listened quietly, occasionally offering gentle guidance. Despite the morning rush, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, almost as if something important was about to happen. As they approached the main hall of the mall, the piano stage in the center came into view. A small crowd had already begun to gather, drawn by the previous day's performance. Some shoppers had recognized Lena and whispered excitedly among themselves. Others had not seen her before, but were curious about the growing group around the stage. Lena felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. She knew that today's performance might attract even more attention than before. The twins ran ahead, their small hands brushing against the polished wood of the piano. "Please, please, just a little," Alex begged, his eyes wide with hope. Lena took a deep breath and approached the piano. She could feel the tension of the crowd, the curiosity and expectation in their eyes. She placed her fingers on the keys, letting the familiar texture calm her nerves. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the quiet murmur of the mall fading into the background. Then, slowly, she began to play. The first notes were soft and delicate, almost hesitant. But as the melody unfolded, Lena poured every ounce of emotion she had into the music. It was not just a performance. It was a story, a reflection of her past, her struggles, and the quiet strength she had nurtured over the years. The music grew, soaring through the air with power and grace. People stopped in their tracks, their conversations fading as they listened in awe. The twins stood close, mesmerized. They had never seen Lena play with such depth, such intensity. Every note seemed to tell a story, to reach into the hearts of the listeners. Some people in the crowd were moved to tears, unable to believe that someone so modest, so quiet, could create such beauty. Others simply watched in stunned silence, captivated by the unexpected brilliance. The teenagers who had mocked her before were now speechless, their laughter replaced by wide-eyed astonishment. A few held their phones, recording the performance, unsure if anyone would believe them if they didn't have proof. Lena's hands moved with precision and emotion, each note a reflection of the years she had spent hidden from the world, perfecting her craft in private. As the piece progressed, the melody shifted from delicate to powerful. It rose and fell like waves, carrying the weight of her experiences, the sacrifices she had made, and the quiet hope that had never left her heart. The crowd grew larger, people moving closer to witness the woman who could play so beautifully. Children leaned forward, eyes wide with wonder, while adults watched with admiration, some unable to hide their astonishment. Alex and Leo clapped quietly along, their faces glowing with pride. They had known Lena was talented, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. They whispered to each other, amazed at the complexity and emotion in every note. "She's incredible," Leo said softly, unable to contain his awe. The performance reached its climax, the music swelling to fill every corner of the mall. Lena's fingers flew across the keys, her expression serene, yet focused. The crowd was completely absorbed, the usual noise of the mall disappearing as if time itself had paused. Every person present felt the magic of the moment, the rare power of music to touch hearts and minds without words. When the final note rang out, there was a brief, stunned silence. Then the crowd erupted into applause, cheering, whistling, and clapping with an intensity Lena had never experienced before. Some people were on their feet, giving her a standing ovation, while others wiped tears from their eyes. The twins ran to her side, clapping furiously, their excitement uncontrollable. "That was amazing," Alex shouted. "How can you play like that?" Lena knelt down to the twins, her face flushed with a mixture of pride and humility. "Music is a gift," she said softly. "It's not about showing off. It's about sharing a feeling." The applause continued, and a few adults approached, asking questions about her background. Lena answered politely, keeping the details of her life vague. She had no desire for attention, yet she felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that her music had moved people, even for a short time as the crowd slowly dispersed. Lena noticed a man standing at the edge, watching her intently. He was well dressed, with an air of quiet authority, and he seemed captivated by her performance. Lena felt a flicker of unease mixed with curiosity. She didn't recognize him, but there was something about his gaze that made her heart beat faster. The twins, oblivious to the attention, were already chattering excitedly about their favorite parts of the music. Lena guided them gently, letting them lead her toward the edge of the crowd. She could feel the eyes of the man following them, and a sense of anticipation grew in the pit of her stomach. As they moved away from the piano, the man approached. He introduced himself politely, his voice calm and measured. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said. "I just wanted to say that your performance was extraordinary. Truly remarkable." Lena blinked, unsure how to respond. Compliments were rare, and public recognition even rarer. "Thank you," she said softly. "I wasn't expecting anyone to notice." The man smiled. Notice? Everyone noticed. It's not often that someone plays with such skill and emotion, especially in a setting like this. I couldn't help but be drawn to it. Lena felt a mixture of pride and discomfort. She had never sought attention, yet here it was, unexpected and undeniable. She glanced at the twins, who were still holding her hands, their eyes bright with excitement. "I'm just a caretaker," she said quietly. "I play for children sometimes, not for an audience." The man nodded. "And yet, what you played today touched everyone here. It's rare to see someone with both talent and humility. Have you ever considered performing more publicly?" Lena shook her head. "I'm not interested in fame," she said softly. "Music has always been personal for me." The man studied her for a moment, as if weighing her words. "I understand," he said finally. "But sometimes, people like you are meant to share their gift. Perhaps not for fame, but to inspire, to move others, to remind them of beauty in the world." Lena felt a strange warmth at his words. They were gentle, respectful, and yet carried a weight she could not ignore. She glanced at the twins, who were still watching her, full of admiration and trust. Perhaps there was a way to balance her private love of music with the chance to share it, even if only in small moments like this. The rest of the afternoon was filled with more exploration. The twins wanted to visit the toy section, the bookshop, and even a small art display. Lena followed patiently, enjoying their excitement and curiosity. But her mind kept drifting back to the piano, to the crowd, and to the man who had spoken with such insight that at one point, the twins begged her to stop at the piano again. Lena hesitated, feeling the tension of the growing crowd and the attention she was attracting. But the twins' eager faces were impossible to resist. She walked to the piano, this time playing a short, joyful melody, light and playful, to let the twins join in by clapping along. The crowd watched quietly, some recording, others simply enjoying the rare, spontaneous beauty of the moment. By the time they left the mall, the sun was dipping below the horizon. The city lights began to twinkle, and the streets were filled with the soft hum of evening activity. The twins were tired but happy, their small hands clutching hers tightly. Lena felt a sense of fulfillment she had not known in years. The music had brought joy, wonder, and even a little magic into their lives. And hers. As they drove home, she reflected on the day. The performance, the applause, and the unexpected recognition had left her both exhilarated and apprehensive. She had shared a part of herself she had kept hidden for so long, and it had been received with awe and respect. Perhaps, she thought quietly, it was time to reconsider what she had always believed about her music, that it was meant only for her. The twins, leaning against her shoulders, dozed off quietly, exhausted but content. Lena glanced at them, a soft smile on her lips, feeling a profound sense of connection and responsibility. She had become more than a caretaker. She had become a guide, a source of inspiration, and perhaps a sea. The following morning felt different. Lena woke up to the soft sunlight spilling through the tall windows of the mansion, but the usual calm that greeted her was tinged with a sense of anticipation. The events of the previous 2 days lingered in her mind. The piano, the crowd, the applause, and the unexpected recognition. She had always thought her music was a private solace, a hidden world she kept tucked away. But now, she realized that even small moments of courage could ripple far beyond what she imagined. The twins were already awake, racing down the stairs with their usual boundless energy. "Can we go to the mall again today?" Alex asked, practically bouncing with excitement. "Please, we want to see the piano again." Lena smiled, pouring coffee into her cup while keeping a watchful eye on them. "We can go," she said softly. "But remember, it's not about the piano. It's about enjoying the day and exploring. You can watch and learn, but don't expect me to perform for anyone else today." Leo's eyes sparkled. "We just want to see you play a little, like yesterday." That was the best thing ever. Lena hesitated. She had not anticipated how quickly her private talent could attract attention, and she worried about the consequences of being recognized publicly. Still, the boys' excitement was contagious, and their admiration for her was genuine. "All right," she said finally. "Just a short piece for you two." The ride to the mall was filled with chatter. The twins talked nonstop about the music, the people in the crowd, and their ideas for small performances they could do together. Lena listened quietly, occasionally offering gentle guidance and laughter. She felt a strange mix of nervousness and anticipation, wondering if the mall crowd would remember her, and if today would attract even more attention than before. As they entered the mall, Lena noticed that the piano stage had already drawn a small gathering. People were curious, some chatting about the previous performances. A few recognized her and whispered excitedly, pointing toward her as she walked by. Lena's cheeks warmed, and she felt a familiar flutter of anxiety. She had never sought recognition or applause, yet here it was, unavoidable and growing. The twins ran ahead, tugging her hands, eager to get closer to the piano. Lena followed, keeping a careful pace. The crowd seemed larger than the day before, and she noticed some familiar faces, people who had been present during her first performance, now waiting with anticipation. She felt a moment of panic. Could she play again without being overwhelmed by the attention? Alex leaned against her arm. "Please, just a little," he whispered, eyes wide. "We promise it's only for us." Lena took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of their trust and the gentle pull of her own desire to share. She sat at the piano, her fingers hovering above the keys. The familiar texture calmed her nerves, and she closed her eyes for a moment. Then, slowly, she began to play. The melody started softly, delicate, and flowing. People began to gather more closely, some moving quietly to listen. Lena's fingers danced across the keys with precision and emotion, weaving a story that was both tender and powerful. The twins watched, their eyes wide with wonder, and even some of the children in the crowd were captivated by the beauty of the music. As she played, Lena felt something shift. The music no longer belonged only to her or to the twins. It belonged to the moment, to everyone present. People who had never met her were moved by the melody, some closing their eyes, others leaning forward, completely absorbed. It was a rare and powerful experience, one that reminded her why she had fallen in love with music in the first place. Halfway through the piece, a soft murmur began to ripple through the crowd. More people had arrived, drawn by the sound of the piano and the growing excitement. Lena's hands moved faster, but with careful control, carrying the story of the melody to its climax. The music was playful at times, somber at others, reflecting the complexity of emotions that had filled her life, the struggles, the losses, and the moments of quiet hope she had nurtured over the years. The twins clapped softly along, their faces full of pride. "You're incredible," Leo whispered, almost breathless with admiration. "No one else can play like you." When the final note echoed through them all, the silence that followed was profound. Then, slowly, the crowd erupted into applause. Lena looked up, startled by the sheer intensity. People cheered, some whistled, and a few even clapped with tears in their eyes. The twins ran to her side, hugging her small hands with enthusiasm. "That was amazing." Alex shouted, "Everyone needs to hear you." Lena smiled, feeling a mixture of pride, relief, and humility. She knelt down to the twins. "Music is a gift," she said softly. "It's not about showing off. It's about sharing a feeling." Suddenly, a voice came from the edge of the crowd. Lena turned to see the same man who had spoken to her a few days ago. He had a calm presence and an air of quiet authority, and his eyes held a kind of respect that made Lena feel both nervous and intrigued. "Your performance is extraordinary," he said. "I couldn't help but watch. You have a gift that deserves to be shared." Lena felt a mix of embarrassment and pride. "I'm not interested in attention," she said softly. "I play for myself and for a few children, not for anyone else." The man smiled. "I understand. But sometimes people are meant to share their talents in ways that inspire others. You have the power to move people, to remind them of beauty in the world." Lena felt a strange warmth at his words. He didn't push her. He simply observed, respectful and encouraging. She glanced at the twins, who were still holding her hands and looking up at her with admiration and trust. Perhaps there was a way to balance her private love of music with the chance to share it more openly, even if only in small, meaningful moments. The afternoon passed with the twins exploring the mall. They wanted to try toys, look at books, and even explore a small art display. Lena followed patiently, enjoying their excitement and curiosity. She occasionally glanced toward the piano stage, her heart tugged by the memory of the crowd and the music she had shared. As the evening approached, a mall manager approached Lena cautiously. "Excuse me," he said politely. "We've noticed the crowd that gathers whenever you play. Would you consider performing for a scheduled event here?" I think many people would love to hear your music officially. Lena felt her stomach tighten. The idea of a formal performance, with cameras, schedules, and a large audience, was overwhelming. She had never sought recognition, and the thought of such attention made her nervous. Yet she also felt the quiet thrill of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, she could step out of her comfort zone in a small way. She glanced at the twins, who were still watching her, full of admiration. "I don't know," she said softly. "I've never performed officially. I play for myself and for children who enjoy it." The manager nodded understandingly. "I understand. But sometimes sharing your gift can bring joy to others and create opportunities you never imagined. It's entirely up to you, of course." Lena considered this in silence. She remembered the applause, the astonishment in people's eyes, and the way her music had touched hearts without her expecting it. Perhaps it was time to take a small step forward, to allow herself to be seen in a way she had long avoided. The twins tugged gently at her hands. "Please, just one more piece," Alex whispered. "For us." "You can do it." Lena took a deep breath and sat at the piano one last time. This piece was different, a short, joyful melody that invited everyone to listen without fear of expectation. Her fingers moved gracefully, creating a story that was playful, light, and full of warmth. The crowd watched quietly, some recording, others simply enjoying the music without distraction. When the final note faded, the applause was deafening. Lena looked up, startled and moved by the reaction. The twins hugged her hands tightly, their excitement and pride overflowing. Lena realized that her music, even in small doses, could create joy and wonder far beyond what she had imagined. As they left the mall, the sun had begun to set, casting a warm glow over the streets. Lena felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. She had shared a part of herself she had long hidden, and the world had responded with appreciation, respect, and wonder. The experience was both humbling and exhilarating, a reminder that even small acts of courage could ripple far beyond her expectations. The twins, exhausted but happy, leaned against her as they drove home. Lena reflected on the day, realizing that she had reached a turning point. The piano, the music, and the joy she had created were no longer entirely private. The world had noticed her gift, and she could no longer ignore the possibilities that lay ahead. For the first time in years, Lena felt a quiet determination. She had survived hardship, nurtured her talent in secret, and faced life with humility. Now, she understood that sharing her gift, even in small, meaningful ways, could bring beauty, inspiration, and connection into the lives of others. And perhaps, she thought, it could also open doors she had never dared to imagine. The morning sun poured through the windows of the mansion, casting a warm glow across the rooms where Lena moved quietly, preparing breakfast for the twins. There was a sense of calm in the air, but Lena felt a subtle undercurrent of excitement. The events of the past days, the mall, the piano, the unexpected attention, had left her with a sense that something important was unfolding. The twins were already awake, their chatter filling the house as they hurried down the stairs. "Can we go to the mall today?" Alex asked, practically bouncing with energy. "I want to hear you play again." Lena smiled softly. "We'll go," she said. "But remember, it's not about the piano this time. It's about enjoying the day and seeing new things." Leo, his eyes wide with curiosity, added, "And maybe, just maybe, we'll see that same crowd again. People were so amazed yesterday." Lena laughed quietly. "We'll see," she said. "But you have to promise to stay close to me and behave." The ride to the mall was filled with excitement and anticipation. The twins talked nonstop, planning which stores to visit first, which snacks to try, and whether they could see the piano again. Lena listened, smiling quietly, feeling a warmth in her chest. She had never realized how much joy such simple moments could bring. Watching children explore the world with curiosity and wondered out as they entered the mall. Lena noticed that the piano stage had already attracted attention. A small crowd had gathered, murmuring about the previous performances. Some people had recognized Lena from the earlier days, while others simply wondered who the woman at the piano might be. Lena felt her nerves stir. Public attention had never been comfortable for her, yet she also felt the quiet thrill of possibility. The twins ran ahead, tugging at her hands. "Please, please," Alex said. "We just want to watch you play again." Lena hesitated for a moment. She could feel the gaze of the crowd, the curiosity and expectation in their eyes. But then she looked at the twins, their faces full of admiration and trust, and she realized she could not say no. She guided them gently to the piano and sat down, taking a deep breath. Her fingers hovered above the keys, feeling the familiar texture that had been a source of comfort and expression for so many years. The first notes were soft and tentative, but as she continued, the melody grew in confidence and beauty. Lena poured her heart into every note, letting the music tell a story of hope, resilience, and quiet strength. The crowd fell silent, captivated by the unexpected brilliance. People stopped in their tracks, drawn by the sound that seemed to transform the space around them. Alex and Leo watched in awe. They had seen Lena play before, but today her music carried a depth and power that they had never imagined. It was as if the piano was speaking directly to each listener, carrying emotions that words could never express. Children and adults alike were drawn in, some swaying gently to the rhythm, others closing their eyes to fully absorb the beauty of the moment. The melody shifted, moving from playful notes to a more powerful, soaring sequence. Lena's hands danced across the keys with precision and emotion, conveying the full spectrum of her experiences, the struggles she had faced, the quiet moments of joy, and the enduring hope that had carried her through difficult times. The twins clapped softly along, their faces glowing with pride and delight. As she reached the climax of the piece, Lena felt a wave of exhilaration. The crowd around her had grown larger, people drawn in by the music and the sheer intensity of her performance. Some were recording on their phones, while others simply listened, captivated and silent. The usual bustle of the mall seemed to fade away, replaced by the magic of the music and the shared wonder of those present. When the final note echoed and lingered in the air, the crowd erupted into applause. The sound was overwhelming, filling the space with energy and admiration. The twins ran to her side, their small hands clapping furiously. "That was incredible," Alex shouted. "You should play for everyone all the time." Lena knelt down to them, her heart full. "Music is special," she said softly. "It's not about performing for others. It's about sharing a feeling, even in small moments like this." Among the crowd, Lena noticed familiar faces, the man who had spoken to her before, the mall manager, and several onlookers who had witnessed her earlier performances. They smiled at her, some nodding in admiration, others whispering quietly to one another. Lena felt a mix of pride, humility, and a hint of apprehension. Her private talent had begun to attract attention she had never sought. Yet the joy she saw in the crowd reminded her why she had chosen to play. After the applause settled, the twins wanted to explore the mall. Lena guided them gently, letting them lead the way while keeping a careful eye on the crowd. They visited toy stores, bookshops, and even a small art display, all the while talking excitedly about the music and the people they had seen watching. Lena listened quietly, smiling, feeling the lightness of the day wrap around her like a warm blanket. As the afternoon passed, the mall manager approached her again, this time with a more serious tone. "We've been discussing the performances," he said politely. "We would love to organize a special event where you could play for a larger audience." It would be safe, structured, and would allow more people to experience your gift. Lena felt a tightening in her chest. The thought of performing on a larger stage, with cameras, schedules, and expectations, was daunting. She had never sought recognition or fame, and the idea of such attention made her nervous. Yet, a part of her, the part that had felt joy and freedom through music, stirred with possibility. "I don't know," she said softly, glancing at the twins. "I've always played quietly, for myself and for the children I care for. I'm not sure I'm ready for something so public." The manager nodded. "I understand completely. But think about the impact your music could have. You could inspire people, bring beauty into their lives, and show that talent and passion can come from unexpected places." Lena considered his words. She remembered the awe in the twins' eyes, the astonishment of the crowd, and the way music had transformed a simple afternoon into something extraordinary. Perhaps it was time to take a step forward, to share her gift in a way she had never imagined. The twins tugged at her hands again. "Please, just once more," Leo said softly. "For us. You can do it." Lena took a deep breath and sat at the piano one last time. This piece was different, a short, joyful melody that invited everyone to listen without fear or expectation. Her fingers moved gracefully, creating a story that was playful, light, and full of warmth. The crowd watched quietly, some recording, others simply enjoying the beauty of the music. By the time the final note faded, the applause was overwhelming. Lena looked up, amazed and moved by the reaction. People were clapping, cheering, and some were even wiping tears from their eyes. The twins hugged her hands tightly, their excitement and pride overflowing. Lena realized that her music, even in small doses, could create joy and wonder far beyond what she had imagined. As the sun began to set, the mall slowly emptied. Lena, the twins, and the manager walked toward the exit. The man who had first spoken to her approached again. "You have a rare gift," he said gently. "I hope you consider sharing it more. The world needs beauty like yours." Lena felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had always feared attention, but now she understood that her music could touch lives, bring joy, and create connections she had never anticipated. The twins, leaning against her, were sleeping peacefully after their long day. Lena looked at them and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The drive home was quiet, the city lights reflecting softly on the car windows. Lena reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the years of private practice, the quiet moments alone at the piano, and the courage it had taken to share her music, even in small ways. She realized that she had grown stronger, more confident, and more willing to embrace the possibilities ahead. As they arrived at the mansion, the twins stirred, waking briefly to thank her for the wonderful day. Lena smiled, holding their hands and feeling a profound sense of connection. She knew that life would return to its usual rhythm soon: chores, quiet evenings, and solitary practice. But now she carried a new awareness. Her music was a bridge, a way to touch lives, inspire hearts, and create joy. Later that evening, Lena sat quietly at her piano in the empty music room. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the city outside. She let her fingers dance across the keys, playing a melody that was hers alone, yet carried the memory of the day, the crowd, the applause, and the wonder in the twins' eyes. She realized that she no longer had to hide her gift entirely. Small moments, shared carefully, could create a ripple of beauty in the world. Lena leaned back, hands resting on the keys, feeling a quiet determination. She would continue to care for the twins, guide them, and nurture their curiosity. But she would also allow her music to shine in small, meaningful ways. She had discovered a new balance, a way to honor her private world, while also embracing the joy of sharing her gift. As she closed her eyes, Lena imagined the future. Perhaps she would play for small gatherings, children's events, or quiet performances in places where her music could inspire and uplift. She did not need fame, recognition, or applause. What mattered was the connection, the joy, and the wonder that music could create. And in that moment, Lena felt a quiet peace. The piano, the music, and the small M.